It's go time. Back at it again. This is gonna be all of the clips that I make today. It's gonna be the second day and the last day that I film the main bulk of the footage, because this move is gonna be happening fairly soon, and in order to both work around that and have this video up on the 20th, this is it. I think this is the only long enough window that I've given myself left to be able to create this video as a whole, or create the main bulk of the video, I mean. So I'm going to do just that. If I look here, I'm looking at all of the notes that I've made on the laptop. One of the things that I actually wanted to do was to evolve the camera setup, or the formatting of the video, I mean, in terms of how organized it was, and I think I've done just that this time round. And I think if I, from a year ago, saw all of this that I was doing, even around this move situation, I think I would probably feel happy with what's going on here. And if it were possible, I think I'd feel happy because I'd be able to see that the quality would have evolved in terms of the resolution, because even though the phone I was using, the iPhone XR, can film up to a way higher resolution than this camera can film, up to 4K 60 frames per second. This is the phone I'm talking about. This is the phone I usually use. I didn't really think that there'd be much of a difference in terms of resolution quality if I went out my way to make all of the videos that I made on the iPhone around that time 480p, and I just left it at 30 frames per second. I didn't even care for frame rate back then. Now, although that was very practical of me to do that from a storage perspective, in terms of quality, or resolution quality that is, I made major sacrifices without even knowing it, because although I had the mental capacity to understand that 480p is of a lesser resolution than 4K, I didn't think that because I filmed it in a higher quality than that, whether it be through the selfie camera on 1080p, 60 frames per second, or with the front facing camera, 4K, 60 frames per second, I thought that it would just stay at that. But after eventually uploading videos in 4K, or starting to upload them I think in 1080p on the phone and then 4K, I could see that there was a major difference. With some videos, for some reason, even with the ones that I've made in preparation for the move, they're just 1080p. I think that's because of the filter on YouTube. When you upload, you've got this thing called, you go onto settings and then it's called upload quality, if I remember correctly, and it's got a whole load of options, starting from maybe 360p or maybe even 144p. I think the standard definition nowadays though is 360p, even though you can find 144p videos on YouTube. You got that, and that's the lowest limit, the 360p, and then it goes all the way up to full quality, whatever that is. That could be 4K, and I think with movie videos, for example, that might even be up to 8K. But imagine that in 10 years, maybe 8K, maybe 100 to 120 frames per second would just be fairly normal for anyone to use. The same way 4K 60 frames per second is fairly accessible nowadays. That's just, it probably will happen bit by bit, but yeah, that's just it's just wow, just wild, I'd say. It's just yeah, more like a fun fact. But then again, if you ask me what I mean by wild, I say I don't know, but it's just interesting to think about. I think that's what I mean. However, not technical difficulties aside, but video making talk aside, I'm now ready to get into this video. To make it easier for myself, I think I'll keep on ending clips so that I can timestamp everything as I want to. and then I'll take it from there. So I'm gonna now I'm gonna give the disclaimer, and I'm just gonna take it from there. I'll explain everything after in this next clipping. Right, it should be good. Actually, I'm just gonna check it. Yeah, it should be fine. Okay then. So, as said, I'm going to start off with the disclaimer, and I'm going to do just that. And as I said, I've got all my notes on this laptop here, which I don't think is in frame, but it is here, and I'm going to read from it a lot because I've got a massive script. So, I'd like to say, before starting the main part of this video, I'd like to give a disclaimer. If you are looking for a talk that's basically 1 minute, or just a video with a whole load of music in it that's 30 seconds long, this video is not for you. And for those that are wanting something like that, they probably wouldn't watch a video like this. They might watch for 15 to 30 seconds and then click off. But regardless, if anybody like that has skipped to this point somehow rather conveniently, if you're looking for that, go look somewhere else. This video is not for you. And if you don't follow by request, that's more of an order, honestly. You don't have to follow it, by the way, even though I present it like that, like an order. You're just not gonna feel satisfied, and you're gonna wanna click off anyway. So I'm giving you a heads up. Yeah. This is the reason why I'm making a video like this, is because I like making movie long projects. I like having a lot to show for what I've got going on, and a part of how I do that is actually have the nerve to show years worth of progress within the space of a minute. That's not what I'm wanting to do, and that's not what I've set myself to do. This is not even really completely, by any means, representative of what it's actually taken to actually get to where I'm at now in the journey, where I've been going at this for a few years, or a couple of years, in terms of what I originally called the body transformation journey. On the 20th of August, when I went out my way to start doing that, which is then just completely gone to a completely evolved and blossomed into a life transformation journey. But before then as well, I did have a build up to get to that point. Not only on the day, as I'm going to talk about, but also well before that, during around pandemic times when I was in uni and I was going out of my way to eat healthily on a regular basis, if I remember correctly. That was back when I didn't really have the character to follow through with such things on a daily basis. That wasn't something that I taught myself, and it wasn't an ability I had that I had developed anywhere near as much as I had now, because I hadn't started before. I hadn't started when I was, for example, 13 years old. I was 18 in university, a little boy just going out. And although back then I might have thought I was a man, I wasn't even in the adult stage of my life. I wasn't even 20 years old. Although within the age of majority from a legal perspective, I was a boy. I was a teenage boy just going out. And I think it was actually quite helpful for me to have that experience and to have a taste of what it was like for me to get what I want back then, which was to escape my parents' wing. That's what I said I wanted to do, and I hadn't done that. I mean, my financial situation was tied to them in terms of like the university debt. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I still wasn't. I hadn't I completed that aim of escaping my parents' wing to an amount that I felt happy with, at least more than I didn't. And although I would like to get to such a point, I've learned that I'd want to prepare myself way more than I did back then. But then again, that's life. You live and you learn. So when I do, it's not a matter of if, when I do, which I really want to, I'll be a lot more prepared than I was back then. And I think I'd be prepared in terms of not only just staying physically healthy before the move, but after the move meant I'd have my ways to be able to do that and to stay mentally healthy. I'd be doing that before and after the move, or before, during and after, and that goes for physical health as well, social health too, that sort of stuff. I would make myself very prepared to a point where I feel happy with it, and if I sense I'm stalling, I'd then go for it. I'd be financially ready as well, of course, because without that, would not be able to pay rent and bills. I hear that there's this housing crisis going on. I don't really know, but I do know that I'd want to be able to get to a place where I am in control of my life completely, where if I am on what I might consider a high at the time, that'd be because of me, and if not, then that's also on me, and I would be both mentally and physically able to make sure that I do stay on the path, and financially able as well to stay on the path to keep on doing what I want to do without my parents trying to manipulate me into doing something I don't want to do, which is a part of the price that I have to pay with their personalities and my personality when living with them. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I don't want to anymore. I'm really sick of it. I'm sick of being manipulated by them, and even if I were to set a boundary, which I'm not sure, I spoke about having an argument with my dad in particular around this time. It's currently 5:16 in the evening on the 10th of August 2023, and yesterday I made a video saying that I had yet another argument with him, and he is definitely, in my opinion, a bully. He in my mind is quite the narcissistic individual who only acts nice when he gets what he wants out of you. That is the conclusion that I built on his character rather recently, and it's coming from an emotional standpoint. That definitely is coming from an emotional place. However, I don't mind that, because I do understand I'm human, and not only do I have a rational standpoint with things, I also have an emotional standpoint with things, and I'm not at a point where I'm listening to these sorts of people who say, I'm not talking about like boys don't cry, being stoic and those sorts of things. I've read maybe on, or maybe heard on YouTube, that'd be like the sorts of gender norms that are in place for males in particular, being stoic and seemingly okay on the outside, and seemingly calm and maybe what people will consider normal on the outside. But if I were to be that way in this sort of situation, in which I'd only go out my way to think from a logical standpoint on things, or in this case, my dad's character, and I'd purposely be trying to push my emotional standpoint on things away to try and numb the pain that I feel from an emotional perspective, from the sorts of threats that he's made, I'd only get to a point where I'd only be worsening my mental state, I think. I'm not saying. I have also been quite an unpleasant son myself, and I think very, very, very honestly, or very basically, that the only potential our relationship with me and my parents in particular would have to be at least somewhat civil, more often than it's not, is for me to leave. And I also sense that the further away I am from my parents in particular, the more at peace I feel. Because there isn't, and I think this is because I wouldn't be in a position where thinking about them is triggered as much, or those sorts of thoughts relating to them that I have that might come from an emotional standpoint is triggered as much, because they wouldn't be within my vicinity, within my presence. This isn't something that I actually expected to talk about at all right after the disclaimer, because that is not in line with the script that I've got here. However, it definitely is a part of my story, and it's going to be a part of my story for as long as I live. This relationship that I have with family, and particularly parents, I think it partially determines how I carry myself as well. And I think one way, as I've said in the recent past, that relationship with now my mum in particular one way I've let that manifest itself is through channeling my anger that I had towards one thing in particular that my mum would say to me through the channel, through making a whole load of videos on the channel. And I felt angry at her saying that I wasn't doing anything, because I didn't believe it was true. And I really didn't like the fact that it didn't, from my perspective, even seem like she had a thought that just because it doesn't seem like he's doing anything actually means that he's doing nothing with his life. That was the connotations. I wasn't doing anything with my life or going out my way to search for a job. And in terms of that, speaking of that, it seems like my parents probably will only treat me with more respect and more close to the respect that I want to be treated with, just to be treated as a human being in a pleasant way, would only come when I'm of economic value to both myself and them. Like, for example, paying rent and bills a little bit. I don't mind doing this, especially for the place that I'm going to be living in. I like it a lot. I like the environment a lot, and that is something that I'm willing to do in order to keep staying there. To not only make it easier from their perspective, to not only make it easier for them, but to make it easier for myself too. And although from a financial perspective I don't think that makes sense, because giving money to them on a monthly basis would be an expense, not an income or something like that, I say it'd actually be helpful for me to do that, because I plan to do it anyway, so I may as well start further building up to that point to do what it takes, so that when I do move I not only have experience with paying rent and bills on a monthly basis, which I, to be fair, did get from being at uni. I just be building up that skill again, not making my ability to do that in the current day and recent, rather than rusty from less than, or almost actually 3 years. As I was saying before the camera cut off, so I think it'd actually be a sensible decision for me to start helping out with the rent and bills, not to be pleasant to them, but rather to build on my experience with paying rent and bills, because that's got to be one of the bare minimum things that I'm going to have to do in order to not only just move out, but to stay out and to put myself in a position where the silence is loud, like this. I've heard of the phrase, peace can be deafening, something along the lines of that, and with silence like this, I definitely believe that it can be true. I'd like to put myself in a position through moving out, in which I do have, it is easy for me to experience this peace of mind when I've moved out, just being able to just be at home, silence. Not necessarily having deafening silence, but loud silence, which I find peaceful, to be not lonely, but alone. And one way that I've planned to get around that and to actually make that happen is through developing on my social health in the way, in the area that I'd want to move in, or at least, now I think about it, at least nearby. That way, when I do move, I don't sense that I'm in any way feeling lonely or whatsoever due to social isolation. That's an issue. I'd actually consider that a mental health issue, not a mental health illness necessarily, but something that I would want to deal with, because I think it's fairly unhealthy, as I've experienced from uni and being out during the pandemic, or being there during the pandemic, that not speaking to people that I'd want to be around, that is, on a regular basis, can be I don't know what the word I'd use is. The first word that comes to mind is painful. Harmful, I think. I think that would be the word that I'd use. It could be a mental health hazard. Because back then, I can go out my way to think about such times. Back then, I wouldn't be really doing anything with my life that was healthy. I tried with eating healthily and going out the way to jog on a regular basis when the gym's closed, but for the most part, beyond someone that I speak to that used to help me take away, that was basically the only person that I had any form of social connection with back then, outside of going to the gym. This was actually, going to the gym at uni was the very first gym I'd ever went to in my life. One of the staff there said it's one of the best gyms. I think they said it was one of the best gyms in the world or something like that. I don't agree with that whatsoever, but I might be wrong. I might be over exaggerating. And now that I think about it, I think it was a really helpful gym, and it was just okay. Saying that, it was just a typical gym with a typical layout. There was quite a few different rooms actually, but the main room that I stayed in was the room with the cable equipment. I didn't want to go to the barbell and lift the weight that I've seen people lift. I was fascinated by it, but I didn't want to look like a fool. I didn't want to make myself look like a fool, and I wasn't willing to try that out yet. I only tried it out when I was around people. I was basically just looking around one of the weightlifting rooms, and I was seeing people exercise, and then we got into it. I was lifting 20 kg, or just the bar, then doing a bench press around a few people, and that was so difficult for me back then. Now I've definitely got a lot stronger than that, less than a few years later. Not necessarily significantly stronger than that, but I've now got to a place where I am increasingly trusting my ability to be able to exercise on a daily, everyday basis, unless I think I'm on the brink of a severe injury or actually severely injured. For example, a few days ago, currently in terms of daily exercise logs, it's day 592, but during day 589, I decided to not exercise because I was having a lot of what I thought was spine pain, or at least pain by my spine around that region. And I was thinking of just doing L-sit lifts in this position with my legs closed like this, with my inner thighs being touching, and then or maybe even like this, and just lifting my legs like that, maybe leaning, like something like that, doing 50 reps of that, just to further develop the trusting ability to be able to exercise on a daily basis, even though I was in pain, to try and work around that, because I didn't want to give what could have been a minor injury or on the brink of a minor injury an excuse, or just feeling the pain. I didn't want to just give that. I didn't want to just have that as a reason to just shy off from not sticking to what what I said I wanted to stick to, which was to exercise on a daily basis and to start doing 50 push-ups of any kind, whether it be knee push-ups or normal push-ups with proper form, and 50 squats on a daily basis. It's not many reps, and although I don't think it helped me from a long-term perspective, just doing that on a daily basis, that can only take me so far. I'm using this as one of many stepping stones to be able to not only take care of my physical health, but to get to a point where I can trust in my ability to not only not know how to do skills, but to be able to conquer them, achieve that skill and master it, regardless of how difficult I might find that skill at the time, and regardless of the fact that during some days I might, for whatever reason, not want to do it from an impulsive standpoint, because maybe I'm thinking, like on day 100, and I think it was I might have said that wrong. I was talking about not exercising. Was that day 100? That was my mistake. That was day 190. But what I'm now talking about, exercising even though I didn't want to, that was day 189. I could do actually quite a bit of editing here to do some maybe screenshots and put that as an overlay on the final project to show what I was talking about. But yeah, that was one day, and I imagine one of many days in which I might not want to exercise from an impulsive standpoint, because I was sensing I was on the verge of a headache, and I was thinking I don't really work out efficiently during the night time. But in terms of my physical ability, I'd say that I did actually prove myself wrong there. And in the past, before that point, I thought that I could use exercise as a means to cool down, and maybe I could use that sort of session to do just that. But one of the reasons why I didn't think that I find it easy to effectively work out at night is because with my past efforts, my past efforts were definitely representative of that idea, as far as I'm aware. Now that I think about it, excluding the time I was able to do 100 squats, whichever day that was a while ago. Day 500 it couldn't have been 87. I think it was day 487. I'll be able to find it pretty easily. Something like that. I'm gonna have to find it and edit it anyway, so I think I will just go through it. It was the 1700th video a while ago. Oh man. It was the one of me at day 547. Day 547 with the thumbs up and with me pointing my white hoodie on and my cap on. Yeah, that was that was a day disproving my point that I wouldn't be able to effectively work out during the nights. But I would be speaking very generally, and I wouldn't really be thinking of examples in which that was the case, but just based off how I remember thinking and feeling, or thinking from an emotional standpoint when it came to the idea of exercising at night, I would not believe in my ability to be able to actually have what I consider an effective workout. And by an effective workout, I mean a workout in which I'd develop on my current physical abilities. That can be definitely difficult to do, but I'm getting to a point where I don't think that's something I'll have to think about, because I know that I prefer exercising in the morning, so I like to imagine that I just do that. And speaking of, seeing as I'm going to be moving rather soon, it's it's not going to be difficult to exercise in calisthenics parks as well. That's going to be something that I'll be able to do with ease. In the area I'm currently living in, there are definitely few opportunities to be able to do such a thing. There's one I found on Google Maps, which maybe was less than 20 miles away, and I wouldn't be able to just get there, of course, especially seeing as I didn't have enough money coming in and still don't to be able to drive and go that far. Not yet, but pardon me, it's something I'm definitely working on, and I'd like to imagine by next year there's something that I would have eventually, or at least at bare minimum, just about solved. There's something that I'd like to be able to trust myself in, that when I say I would like to be able to have money coming in more than just universal credit, I'd have, that's a 5:30 alarm to try and help me sleep more effectively. But anyway, yeah, I'd like to imagine by a year from now, money wouldn't at least be as much of an issue, and I'm in a place where I definitely need to, otherwise I'm not going to be able to keep what I've got as much. I'll leave it at that, otherwise I'd be unveiling anonymity. But it's definitely something that I really want to do, and I consider it a necessity to be able to live more easily than I might have otherwise been able to, even though I don't necessarily need it, or whatever I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about when I say that, but just for anonymity reasons I'm not going to name it. But yeah, that's actually something that I could talk about, this alarm. So I set an alarm trying to help me out with my sleep, and I think it's okay. I don't know if you can really hear me easily, but very basically thought I was going to be able to feel more than I did over here. However, I've got so much of the script left that I'm just going to leave it until however long, until I go over and finally go to this different place I'll soon be living at. I was looking at the script and I was thinking, yeah, I've got this place, this note I made, where to start off, and that. It's currently Friday, the 11th of August, 11 past midnight, according to the clock on the tablet, and I was staying up just to finish off the video, try and get it done for the most part in just the one day. It didn't happen. Didn't go to plan, but I just wasn't doing it when I said I wanted to do it, so actions have consequences, and these are the consequences. Not necessarily not doing it by not having it up by the 20th of August. I still will be able to do that as possible, but I think I just have to further work around it, because now I just want to go to sleep, and that is it. As far as I'm concerned, there is no other window to get this done over here, so I'm just gonna wait and just take it, finish this off where I'll soon be. So over at this place, at least, that's it. So cheers to still getting it done by the 20th. Cheers to getting on with this different place. Yeah. It's got so serious. The bed frame, I'm not even sleeping on the bed frame anymore. But this is it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm done. I thought I was going to be able to do it throughout the evening, as when I was filming at like 6 p.m. Yesterday evening, but there wasn't as large of a window as I thought there'd be, in which there'd be no background noise. But hey, I could have filmed it earlier. However, I'd like to imagine I'd be more organised and sorted out next time with the 3-year life transformation journey video. I was way more organised this time round compared to the last year. I think I have more of a script and my want for formatting, like having it set up, having the camera set up and all that. There's an improvement from last year round. But I needed to follow through more this year. That if I can do that next year, which I like to imagine I'd be able to do that with ease, then I'd definitely be able to say that I'm making more improvements there, especially if I've got more storage, maybe even a different camera and that sort of stuff. But I don't need any more than I've got in terms of cameras though. Anyway, you're just saying that as like a resolution quality improvement. I do have the phone, so as for resolution quality improvements, that won't be a problem. Anyway, that's it, I'm done. I'm signing out from here. Just leave Vinio over here anyway. The next recording I'll make will probably be in this different place. Yeah. For history's sake, I'm gonna just make a note of what I'm thinking about the move. I have a lot of optimism toward it, although the living situation inside in the house may be more chaotic for reasons I won't get into. At least even for the short term, I think I'd be able to do amazing in this place, better than I would have expected, because there'd be calisthenics parks there. I mean, there's so many different places I could go to do X, Y, and Z. A whole load of different places I could go exercise at. A whole load of healthy, genuine, trustworthy relationships to go and make. And more of a community to be around. It wasn't really a thing in this place that I am living in. It basically is a matter of past now at this point. But yeah, although there were places for community over here, it just wasn't all that, honestly. It really was not, especially inside gyms. It was actually extremely antisocial, and in terms of that lack of deep connection with most people, I won't be missing this place, especially with the lack of resources. There's a lot that this place really makes up for compared to where I'm currently living at. And for stuff like that, even though I'm imagining and predicting the living situation would be more chaotic, at least at home I can just go outside and I can wake up at different times compared to everyone else, so that I can still have peace of mind when I wake up, and I can make it easier for myself to keep my sanity. That's a part of why I really want to take care of my health on a daily basis, to keep my sanity in this different place. Pardon me. Where it might not be so easy to do that. But anyway, cheers to making this move happen. And for history's sake, I feel happy that I've documented it, even though it's 17 past 12 at midnight on the 11th of August. Hey, for history's sake, there you go, that's it. Yeah. I'm done. I'm feeling so tired. But we'll keep moving with this video. Before I do actually just end the clip, I'm gonna just show a calendar to make sure that it's not just the 11th of August of any time, or any year rather. How can I do this? I'm not sure if I can. Oh, actually, I think that's enough proof there. telling the truth. Anyway, that's it. Just really finito. I'm out, and I will now be recording at this different place from this point onwards. So over there we go, and cheers to the move.